I'm Philip Owen. I am the South African coordinator of an environmental organization called GeaSphere. We started with this project basically in 1999 when I organized a meeting which went under the heading Southern African Water Crisis. And it was basically to get a lot of experts together to talk about the different impacts that timber plantations, industrial timber plantations, exert on a variety of facets of our lives. We had people talking about the impacts on reptiles. We had people talking about the impacts on birds. We had people talking about the impacts on plants. And of course we had people talking about the impacts on people.
People, they lose their this precious culture of the knowledge of using medicinal plants for medicinal purposes. But now, because of this water scarcity that is caused by the very same monoculture and these ITPs.
At that meeting, it just became so abundantly clear that industrial, fast rotation, high impact, invasive alien monoculture timber plantations have a massive impact on the natural and social environment. If you think about things like water, timber plantations use vast quantities of water. They are evergreen trees and they deep rooting. The timber species utilized are alien. The one of course is pines from Mexico originally, and eucalyptus trees, which of course originates in Australia. Both those trees are evergreen and they've got deep rooting systems, so they can really tap into the groundwater reserve.
Most important, the issue that is impacting a lot is the issue of water, because as the plantations are sucking a lot of water down, so the people down on the ground are suffering a lot due to water issues. They also need this thing of community gardens, the home gardens, but if there is no water, it's not easy for you to make gardens. So the plantations impact a lot in our communities.
The impact of those timber plantations has been very bad, because it has sucked all the water for the poor communities. They've been removed from those places when they were planted. It has quite done a lot of bad things. I don't even remember of one good thing that the plantation has done for the rural traditional communities.
There's huge impacts on the natural biodiversity. This area used to be primarily grassland. This whole area of South Africa, which is called the escarpment, it's the so-called mist belt. This area, we receive more than 650 millimeters of rain per year, and that's what's necessary to sustain industrial timber plantations. So this area, this escarpment belt, is more water rich than other areas of our country. So that's why this whole escarpment belt, this whole mist belt, has been planted to timber plantations. There's more than 1.5 million hectares of managed timber plantations in South Africa. And then it is said that there's a further 1.6 million hectares of unmanaged plantations. That's invading plantations, jungle gum, jungle wattle. That's where these trees, because of course they're invasive, they spread into the environment. So that's more than 3 million hectares of our country which is under industrial timber plantations. Now, most of this region, the northeastern mountain southveld, used to be grassland, primarily composed of grassland. And in a grassland you can find an estimated 4,000 different kinds of plants. Of course, plants create habitat for other components of the ecosystem, so a grassland is incredibly biodiverse if you think in terms of insects and small mammals and birds and reptiles. Grassland is incredibly biodiverse. And what we have to remember is that in order to establish a timber plantation, you have to destroy completely, in totality, you have to destroy that biodiversity inherent in the grassland. Because grassland plants, or most of them, they cannot tolerate shade. So of course when the trees grow and the canopy closes up, there's not enough light that can penetrate to sustain the undergrowth. So the grassland plants dies, and with it of course jeopardize the grassland animals. Some of them can move away, but I mean, where do they move to? There's this case now where the industry here, locally in the Graskop area, Sabi area, now they're basically culling the baboons, and they've shot hundreds of baboons. They catch them in huge cages, then bring a professional hunter to come and shoot the baboons. Because the baboons, in desperation, goes, and some of the troops have adapted to actually eating at the bark, pine bark, and that makes a mark in the timber, and then the industry cannot use it for saw logs because there's a mark in the timber. It's not the baboons that's the problem. I mean, these are in the mountains up there between Sabi and Graskop, Pilgrim's Rest, those areas. That's where the baboons should stay. The problem is that there's too many plantations in this region, and it's got a really, really big impact on the water then, on the biodiversity of this region, and also on the social structures of the communities that live in this area. Grassland is incredibly threatened worldwide. More than 80% of the grasslands have already been basically irrevocably destroyed. Grasslands have got various functions, which of course is valuable for people, such as flood prevention, such as water retention. They like sponge, so when it rains it holds the water back and allows it the time slowly to seep into the underground aquifers. When you destroy the grassland, you lose out on that function. Of course, that function also implies that it's got a soil erosion prevention function. Where you have good, healthy grasslands, you don't find soil erosion. But where you destroy the grassland through monoculture agriculture or timber plantations, you have huge soil erosion problems. So to rehabilitate, some people say after one rotation, so after maybe 15 years, you remove the timber trees, then you could still get some of the original biodiversity back, because there will still be some seeds inherent there in the grassland. But after 2 rotations, you can basically say it's been irrevocably destroyed. You won't get it back. But that does not mean that we should continue planting it to monocultures. We should look for a diversity-based model which can look after the soil in the long term, so that our children's children can also utilize this environment. Recently now in this region we had these massive fires, and in a way those are plantation induced, because the timber plantations dehydrate this area to a much worse extent than naturally would happen. So you find some gullies in which you have indigenous trees, which in the old days used to act as fire buffers. Fire didn't burn through these belts or gullies of indigenous trees. It was moist. Nowadays, even those little gullies, the ones that's still remaining in this area, are so dry in the wintertime that they don't stop the fires anymore. So you have massive fires, they burn into the timber plantations, they burn hot, and they have huge impacts on the soil. It almost bakes the soil. And then when you find rain and storms, you find terrible soil erosion. You don't find lots of labor or job opportunities in timber plantations. Some trees are on a 9, 15, 25-year rotation period where there's minimal intervention needed. In fact, some people have planted or transformed their land use to timber plantations exactly to eliminate the need to employ lots of people. Most of this region used to be a sort of diversified farmland in the old days. So you'd have sheep farmers, you'd have some dairy farmers, you'd have some vegetable farmers, you'd have some fruit farmers. And of course those kinds of produce, it has to be harvested at least once a year, and it requires more labor, and it provides an opportunity to attain more skills for the local community. There's not many jobs in the timber industry that's skilled.